like to call the Westfield City Council meeting for September 13th, 2021 to order. So we all say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please remain standing. We're now going to have Todd Holowitz from Holtzworth from Northview Church.
Okay. Let's pray together. Dear God, we first just declare who you are. With any prayer, we need to put you in your rightful place. And you're our amazing creator. You're our awesome God. You know us. You love us. You're full of mercy and grace. And we owe it all to you. And God, at the same time, as we think about you, we think about us. And we think about our rightful place. We're sinners. We need to come before you humbly. We fail, and we just need you. We owe it all to you. Lord, I pray over this meeting. I'm thankful for these leaders, and my prayer is the same words that you shared with Joshua. Be strong and courageous. We're in a time where leadership is tough, and so I'm praying over every man and woman that is a leader in our city, serving in some capacity. Lord, help them be strong and courageous. But Lord, I pray over everyone in this wonderful city of Westfield, in this community. I pray over families. I pray for unity. I pray for patience. I pray for an ear to listen. I pray for a heart to love. I pray over our wonderful city and our wonderful families. God, be in the middle of everything we do. We owe it all to you. God, we love you, and we pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tom. Cindy Gossard, could you please note the presence of a quorum?
Joe Edwards.
Here.
Scott Willis.
Here.
Cindy Spalgeric.
Here.
Jake Gilbert.
Here.
Mike Johns.
Here.
Scott Fry.
Here.
Troy Patton.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, I do have two changes to announce to today's agenda. Both of them deal with old business. The first change is ordinance 21-37, which was amending Westfield's Parks and Trails Rules and Procedures. Was supposed to be heard this evening. It's been removed from the agenda and will be rescheduled for a later date. The second change is the addition of resolution number 21 the next number on the list, which as soon as I get that I will give to you, but it is a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Westfield, Indiana, appointing the audit committee members. As you know, the audit committee was established some time ago, and this will be the resolution appointing the members to that committee. First item on our agenda then will be the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, August 23rd, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Cindy Spalgeric, seconded by Scott Fry. Cindy, could you please call the roll?
Troy Patton.
Yes.
Scott Fry.
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Jake Gilbert.
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric.
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Joe Edwards.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the claims docket for September 13th, 2021. I'm going to ask for questions from any of the counselors, but before they answer, I've got a couple questions of my own here. I noted that the BKD invoices for April, May, June, and July totaled $169,516 on the claims docket. Per the clerk's office where I checked today, there are no funds in the accounts to pay these invoices. These invoices were to be paid out of one of two administration accounts. As of the clerk's report today, account number 101001330 is the account for administration dash attorney slash consultant. That had a budgeted amount of $652,200. Actual year-to-date spending, $923,385. Budget overage, $271,185. The other account, 101001331, is an administration account for consulting. A budget amount of $240,000. Actual year-to-date amount, $485,641, $245,641 over budget. Together, these accounts are over budget by $516,826. By state statute, this is not allowed. We're not allowed to spend outside our budget. I'll make the observation that this is not Washington, D.C. I personally recommend that the council not approve the payment of either of the BKD expenses or the legal invoices that we are holding on from last time until we hear back from the mayor with whether he has other accounts from which to draw these monies from. I further recommend that the mayor come back at the next council meeting with either an explanation of what funds to charge these claims against or with a request for a budget appropriation. Let me make one additional observation. It is particularly disturbing to me that the city council is not notified when a department is over budget. Department heads should be responsible for notifying the council that there is a problem. The city council should not have to do forensic accounting to identify when an department is over budget. In the private sector, you pick up the phone, you send an email, you let the person your company is responsible know that you're going to be over budget. That's my comments. Councilors?
Todd, I know you're here. Do you have any comments on that this time, or since the mayor's not here?
Appreciate the opportunity. No comments right now.
Do you have any other comments from any of the councilors?
I agree with the president of the council.
The only question I have is on the consulting budget, and I'm not sure, Cindy, if maybe you can help, but obviously the consulting includes BKD, but does that also include monies we've spent on like OW Crone? Is the overage based on one specific area that we're looking at here, or is that, do we know if that overage is all consultants we've used up to this point, including they have nothing to do with the investigation and so forth? So
I would have to defer to Cindy. As far as I know, there's only two counts.
I mean, regardless, we're over, but there would be reason to believe that there's other consultant contracts that we're going to use throughout the rest of the year that we have budgeted for and prepared for beyond this scope. You know what I mean? I'm just asking that.
I think there are other consultants we intend to use this year that hopefully would be within the budget, but unfortunately the budget's overdrawn. So I'd like to make a motion then, myself if I could, to approve all the claims with the exception of the BKD invoices and the attorney invoices as they appear on the docket of September 13th, 2021.
Sorry, Mr. President. I think to Mr. Gilbert's question, there are additional consulting fees probably in your docket related to Crone and their management of the TIF. So if, I guess the question then before the council is, are you not going to pay any of those consulting fees until we get the appropriation rectified? Because there are other fees of other professional services commingled in that batch.
I think that's correct.
I think that's correct.
Yeah, I think that's the fair thing to do.
All right, I agree with you. All right. Should we, you want to restate the motion?
You made who made the motion?
I made the motion.
Oh, I'll second.
I already
So-
did it.
Oh, you already seconded it? Sorry, Joe.
But just for clarity, I
But
guess,
just-
I'm
but just-
asking, are we paying the other consultants, like OW Crone, or not? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I don't think we are, because
No.
we are technically over budget until someone gives us an allocation of where the money comes from. We really can't
have
pay,
money to
we
spend.
can't make the payments, because otherwise we're violating the same
Yeah,
thing. I know it's kind of odd, but, I mean,
yeah.
so,
So- The-
all, well, Taft, BKD,
BKD
any of
and-
those that go under those,
Those two funds,
Those funds.
any consultants flowing under those two funds which I cited, which are the two accounts ending in 330 and 331, which include the administration attorney / consultant account and the administration consulting account.
And any,
Mr. Chairman, I
Legal
believe
advice
that it's
before we take this vote?
customary for a person or a department to request an additional appropriation when they are over budget. And this makes it clear that I recognize where I am, and this is what I want you to do to help me out. So,
I believe that is the procedure, yes.
and so I think the proper procedure is if they want them paid, come forward, produce an additional appropriation, and it will be voted on by the city council.
Okay, we have a motion, it's been seconded. And
no, and.
So if these accounts are over budget, then I do agree. You'll be in violation of the State Board of Accounts rules and guidelines. You need to get those accounts straightened out or reallocated the dollars to other accounts. I know you want to pay your bills, but you're not supposed to be over budget in any account.
questions? Comments? Okay, we've had a motion made, seconded. Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Yes.
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 yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Next item of business tonight is special recognition.
Hey, Mike, we need to make a motion then to pay the rest of the claims, and
Do we?
as well. Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
I believe, because the motion was to not pay the one bill.
Oh, okay, all right.
Right?
Yeah, can I have a motion then to pay the rest of the claims? The
Yeah.
remainder?
Motion to approve the rest of the claims.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made to pay the remainder of the claims on the claims docket for September 13th, 2021. Been made and seconded. Cindy, please call the roll. Yes.
yes,
Yes.
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 Thank you. The next item on the agenda, miscellaneous business, special recognition, is a presentation by the Rotary.
So I'm honored tonight to give a special presentation on behalf of Mayor Cook. We have a resident here in the community that we want to honor. He has been a rock, quite frankly, no pun intended, here in Westfield for decades. In fact, if you look behind us at that emblem on the wall, he designed and made that, if I'm not mistaken. Could I get Mick Mead to come up here, please? I'll come to you, Mick. You don't have to come so far down. Good to see you. Good to see you. Whereas, what proclamation recognizing Mitchell F. Mead, September 13th, 2021. Whereas Mitchell F. Mead will be honored on this date in September of 2021 for his years of service in the city of Westfield. And whereas Mitchell had a heart to serve this community on the town council and a number of committees throughout the years, and whereas Mitchell was one of the founding members of the Westfield Rotary Club, leading a number of service projects, and whereas Mitchell is proudly supported by his family, friends, fellow Rotarians, and the community as he receives this honor, therefore, I, J. Andrew Cook, Mayor of the City of Westfield, Indiana, do hereby declare September 13th as Mitchell F. Mead Day with the presentation of a Lifetime Achievement Award. And in witness whereof, I, J. Andrew Cook, will hereunto set my hand and cause to be affixed the Great Seal of the City of Westfield on his 13th day of September, 2021. Give a round of applause.
Thank you.
On behalf of the City of Westfield, I want to hand you this plaque, again, for your service and dedication to our city. Hand it to you here, and I'll shake your hand here. Thank you. Let me give you this as well. We got more. As most of you know, Mick is a founding member of the Westfield Rotary, and I believe they also have something special to present to you this evening. So if I could get all Rotarians in the room to come on up and join me, please.
And Jill and Becky.
And of course, Jill and Becky. I'm going to slide over and give Melody the stage here.
Okay, who's not a... Pretty good. Well, this is a very exciting night for us. In addition to all that Nick has done for the city of Westfield, he has been made a huge impact on the Rotary Club of Westfield. As Scott mentioned, he was a charter member. We became an organization in Westfield in 2009. He's participated on a lot of committees. I'm just going to highlight a few. Spring baskets at Open Doors, coats to clothe children at Washington Woods, raising funds and helping assemble the Gaga ball pits at the elementary and intermediate schools, volunteered at Westfield and Lights, helped with the landscaping and installation of the sensory garden at Freedom Trail Park. He volunteered to stamp out hunger, Westfield Youth Assistance Program for Family Day volunteer. He volunteered at the Habitat for Humanity House. He served lots of times in the Rotary Brat booth, volunteered at the Westfield Farmers Market. Mick was also, along with Bruce Watson, decorates the roundabout at Cool Creek Park at Christmas time. And Jill and Mick have graciously hosted multiple events for Rotary, come over here, at Acorn Farms, which is our favorite place to be. So Mick, thank you. Thank you for all you've done for this community, which is a huge amount, and then for everything you've done for our club. And I am so excited to be able to say, under my watch, that we award you a Lifetime Achievement Award from Rotary. Cindy has a class. You don't have panoramic view? No? Okay. Who's taller? There we go. Airbrush it. So I look 15 minutes later. Thank you. 1, 2, 3. Now, Mick, you can say a few words. Would you like help?
Let us know with that.
I think that one's the heaviest one. So.
I am not prepared to give a speech. I will say that Rotary is a very worthwhile organization. It's worth every minute that its members give it. One of the proudest things we've done for Westfield is what we call the Grand Junction Task Group. We met every Tuesday for 3 years, and then most Tuesdays for something like 12 years to fill in the gaps on the 2007 comprehensive plan. And it's a very good plan because we've altered it several times in order to fit the needs as the town became the city and more.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
You want help? Do you need help back? Probably need somebody sturdier than me. Thank you. You're good.
The next item on the agenda is old business. Start with ordinance 21-35, the Spring Mill Trails PUD Mixed Use District Amendment. Had a council introduction on July 12th, APC public hearing on August 2nd, APC recommendation on September 7th. It had a favorable recommendation. I believe it was 6-1. And it's up for adoption consideration this evening.
Thank you. For the record, Rachel Remenschneider with the Community Development Department. The item presented before you tonight is an amendment to the Spring Mill Trail PUD district, which was originally established in 2011. This proposal is for the 11-acre property east of Ditch Road and west of Casey Road. The amendment proposes to change the permitted use to include for-sale townhomes. This item was introduced at the July 12th City Council meeting and had its public hearing on Monday, August 2nd. Since the public hearing, the petitioner has made minor changes, including clarifying the ordinance text and improving building materials and architectural features. On September 7th, the Planning Commission voted 6-1 for a favorable recommendation to the City Council. The petitioner made a number of changes requested by the Plan Commission, which are reflected in the proposed ordinance in your agenda. Earlier today, the petitioner was asked to increase the window requirements to the townhome side facades, which is reflected in the 2 updated documents attached to the agenda and dated with today's date. John Dobashewitz of Nelson Frankenberger and other representatives are here and available to answer questions, but they do not plan on making a presentation. I am available should there be any questions of staff. Thank you.
Councilors, questions, comments?
If I might, I want to thank the petitioner. I did call them today. There was a bit of a disconnect, at least in my opinion, in what we discussed at Plan Commission and the corresponding exhibits for the side elevations concerning the windows. And so the language then in section 5 there was updated to reflect what's actually seen in the exhibits. So it's not really an added requirement. This was already seen in the exhibits. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Motion to approve ordinance 2135.
You have a second?
Second.
Cindy? Call roll, please.
Jay.
Yes.
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 As I mentioned earlier, ordinance 21-37 has been postponed to a later date. The next item on the agenda, resolution 21-128, preliminary determination to enter into a lease for Fire Station 81 and Fire Department Administration Building. This resolution had a public hearing on August 23rd. Another public hearing is held for this evening on September 13th. So I'm going to open the public hearing at 7:26. Kevin, do we have any cards or comments?
I do not.
Okay. Let's give it maybe another minute just to see if anything comes in.
I'll fill out a card if I can just ask a couple questions. And I think this was in the second document. Lyndon Ass, 1122 East 161st Street. My question was, as I'm reading through the project, it was talking about the acquisition of property, the purchase of property. I thought this was property at 17001 Ditch that is already owned by the town of Westfield. So I just wanted a clarification on what it means when the cost or the acquisition is put into the project. Okay, I think the numbers overall were higher than we had thought in the past. It's now up to like $13.85 million. And that means we could be paying, I think the limits are $24.2 million is the top limit. Hopefully, it's going to stay much less than that. But it took me a while to locate the documents, kind of look through the plan, but I still don't understand the acquisition of property and that cost that might be within this, and I couldn't find that delineated out. So I'd appreciate an answer to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Kevin, do we have any other comments come in?
No,
Okay,
sir.
I'll close the public hearing at 7:28. Todd?
So, sorry about that. Relative to that specific question, it is property owned by the city at this point in time. I think it's actually still deeded in the town of Westfield. It's commonly known as Osborne Park. The methodology by which we're bringing funding to this is by a building corporation, as it's been well documented. So that has to be a transfer of that real estate to the ownership of the building corporation. There's no expected actual monetary value exchanging between the two units. It's just it's a procedural process. We're obtaining the legal description, and it'll be that real estate transferred over to the holding of the building corporation.
Hey, Todd, just real quick, just kind of in conjunction with the question, initially, I think we did talk about like a $7 million.
Initially.
And now we're at 13.8.
Correct.
I mean, why is it nearly doubled?
So when the initial conversation was, there were some ideas of not only vacating the current public safety building, putting the police department in what was then contemplated as I believe a school admin building, a township building. There was a strong discussion around that. We had a bond that was falling off at that particular time, building a fire station alone, just an operational footprint, and an administrative wing would go into that, what was being discussed at that current time as a centralized, perhaps, government office building, school, township, police, public safety. Also commingled with that are, and I'll defer to Chief Reed, the design standards in a post-COVID or current COVID era have really influenced a lot of designs of buildings. Not only fire, as you can imagine, they're in close quarters, sleeping in the same dormitory, ventilation. The costs have escalated even in police departments. Later on top of that are market conditions. When we first started, we were seeing anywhere from $200 to $250 a square foot. Now, I think this project's around 300 plus or minus. So there are a lot of factors that are out of our control. There is a maximum bond amount. If you recall, the bids came in at $12.8 million, so that additional monies are issuance costs and things, that administrative fees that go along with the bond issuance. So yes, you do have that tax impact. I have provided that to you in that battery of documents. I believe it's also in that web link with all the other documents that was posted 2 days after the last council meeting, so.
Yeah, so just hypothetically, if we're using ARPA funds for 6.8 million, then the corporate lease will be for much less, obviously.
Yeah, if that is the desire, we can, those qualify for that, we'd input those in with the FA and the bond counsel, which, by the way, he's on this call tonight, Jim Crawford, to answering those sorts of questions. So if those monies could be inputted into the project, then certainly it'll impact the amortization.
Right, okay, thanks.
Counselors, any other questions or comments? Okay. Can I have a motion then to approve the resolution 21-128, preliminary determination to enter into a lease?
Motion to approve resolution 21-128.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Troy and seconded by Scott Willis. Cindy, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Okay. The next item under old business is the resolution that we added tonight, resolution number 21 number to be determined. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Westfield, Indiana, appointing the audit committee member. And I think if we can scroll down there, we see that we have 3 appointees to approve. The mayor's appointee, Rebecca Ogle, council member appointee of Ryan Watson, and the CPA appointed by the council of Troy Patton. And these would be the 3 individuals who together would do and perform the search and the approval for the CPA to act as perform the city audits moving forward. So, are there any questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Yes, Joe?
the reason this is being done is because we feel like we will get a better audit in the private sector than perhaps we might, well, I don't want to say we would get a better audit, but we would get a perhaps a better audit, let's just say it that way, in the private sector. And all of our surrounding communities do it this way. They help with best process, and we could probably do with some help there in structuring things. And I believe that this is the right way for us to go. We have to ask permission of the State Board of Accounts. This committee then works with the State Board of Accounts to select an audit firm from that list of that they have, from an approved list, is my understanding. So they screen the firms, and then the firms are presented to us to choose from. So that's kind of the process, but we need a citizen committee constructed that way to do this, and that's why this is being done. I think it's a good thing, really do. If you look at accounting firms, a number of accounting firms doing audits are less and less all the time. And it's because there are so many landmines in these audits that are difficult to see. Now, I'm not alleging there's any landmines in ours, because I really don't know, but if there were and they could be found, it would be to our advantage, but probably that will never happen. Probably what will happen, we will receive suggestions to improve process.
It'd be much more timely,
Yeah.
much more efficient, much more cost-effective than a special examination, audit, things like that.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question. So very excited. I happen to know all three of those people, so a great group of people there. But should Troy Patton and Ryan Watson be switched, as in the council member appointment is actually Troy Patton and the CPA appointed by council is actually Ryan Watson?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, so we
Absolutely
need to get
Ann,
that.
can you handle that for us?
No.
You can simply move to adopt the resolution if you choose so with that correction.
Okay. I would move that then, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Cindy, would you call the roll, please? Jake Gilbert. Yes.
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 Good deal. Okay. Moving on now to new business. Resolution 21-127, additional appropriation for the library. It's council introduction this evening with the public hearing on the 27th, and it will also be up for adoption consideration on the 27th. Do we have a presenter? Hey, Cheryl.
Good evening. I'm Cheryl Sollers, Executive Director of the Westfield, Washington Public Library. For the past several years, the library has received special distributions, and because of not going over the non-farm growth quotients in those years, we have not been able to spend those funds, but would like to do so now to pay professional service fees, architect fees, legal fees, etc., that we have incurred in the new library project. These expenses will be reimbursed back into the rainy day fund by the new library bond proceeds once those proceeds have been received. But we wanted to do an additional appropriation in case there was a delay in receiving those funds before the end of 2021. On September 27th, we are asking for your approval of an additional appropriation of $150,000 from our rainy day fund. This will put our 2021 budget over the growth quotient of 4.2%. And so we need city council approval because Westfield City Council is our fiscal body. At the September 8th, 2021 library board meeting, the library board approved this additional appropriation. Thanks. If you have any questions, let me know.
Councilors?
What was the vote on that date?
7-0. 7-0.
Cheryl, do these funds come out of your rainy day fund?
Correct.
Okay, that's a relief.
But if the council wants to dictate from their rainy day fund,
They may.
The library would be happy
the
to
library would be
receive
thrilled.
those.
Any other questions or comments? Cheryl, thank you then.
Okay.
We will be back and see you, or you'll be back on the 27th. then.
Yes,
Thank you.
I'm standing up here because I think I'm
Stay
next.
here, stand there, don't go anywhere, because we now have a library budget presentation, which will be done this evening with the public hearing on the 27th, adoption consideration on October 11th.
Okay. For the 2022 budget cycle, the library board will be asking the city council to approve the 2022 budget. State statute limits the ability of the library board to increase the total budget no more than the 6-year non-farm personal income factor of the state. This is true for all libraries in the state of Indiana. For 2022, that factor is 4.3%. If Westfield, Washington Public Library budget exceeds this factor, it requires the approval of the city council. The new 2022 bond payment will cause the library to go over the 4.3% limit. The library is also requesting to appropriate some cash reserves in the rainy day fund and in the general fund for 2022. This will establish a new total budget base going forward after 2022. This does not mean we are increasing the general fund tax rate. In fact, the general fund rate will actually decrease. In 2021, the general fund rate is 0.023 cents, and it is 0.023, and is it expected to decrease to 0.0226 in 2022 with the most recent certified assessed valuation. The library board, although it is not required to do so, approved the 2022 budget being brought for you for your consideration. The City Council will be asked to hold 2 public hearings, one for the library budget and one for your city budget on September 27th. The same is true for the adoption. The City Council will be asked to approve the library budget and the Westfield City budget on October 11th, 2021. I have worked with the library's financial consultant, Mike Reuter, the Library Board Budget Committee, and the Library Board on the budget as presented. Please let me know if you have any questions or need any clarification on the process.
Councilors? Any questions, comments? I guess not.
Okay.
Cheryl, thank you.
I'll see you again.
See you next time.
All right.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is the 2022 budget presentation. It's up for council introduction this evening. We'll have a public hearing September 27th, and it'll be up for adoption consideration October 11th. Todd Bertrand.
Good evening, councilors. It's that time of year again where we make the public introduction of the operating and capital budget for the forthcoming year. I know we have a heavy agenda, and there's several slides associated with this particular presentation, and so we'll certainly have a discussion if you so desire, but we'll remain focused on the slides. I won't read them line by line, but just to kind of give a foundation as to what this budget, as all budgets have supported. As you noted, Councilor Johns, this is the timeline. I'll draw your attention that we really started this conversation back in March. And by the way, you do have the basis platform of this, but we'll upload this tomorrow because we've added more content to it. So, and we'll get it out to you in your inboxes as well. So there's the timeline. I won't go bullet by bullet on that, but we are now at the introduction. I think all have had the opportunity to spend time with the departments, trying to understand better their operations, what their focus is as far as service delivery. Also, you have had access to a battery of other documents related to the organizational configuration, salary, surveys, and things of that nature. So with the department details, what we will do, and I know it's been a request to the council to have directors present, and what we'll start off tonight with Chief Reed. Again, we'll try to be diligent in this delivery. Again, one important note, I think you have, as of April 15th, were given access to OpenGov, which is a new portal that we are consolidating all budget planning into, and all the granular details associated with the operating budget, comparative to 21 and 22. So without further ado, I'll have Chief Reed come in, kind of just give you an overview of his budget submission, and we'll move right along.
President Johns, Council, thanks for the opportunity tonight. So our department goals, we just kind of highlight, these are the 3 kind of overarching goals that we take into each year. The first one talks a little bit to do about organizational health, and So our budget, your budget should reflect really kind of what your organizational goals are, and I think you'll see that as we walk through that. The organizational health is basically if we think that people are fit both physically and mentally, that translates into good service to the citizen, right? So second thing is with regards to performance, this is, we're a high reliability organization. Often we trade speed for accuracy. And so we expect our people to come to work rested and ready to go. As I often tell them, this isn't baseball. We don't get to get it right 1 out of 3 times. We have to get it right every time. Finally, intentional improvement. We just talked a little bit about everything we try to do is intentional in terms of what our policies are, how we operate the organization, and then and that we know that the business changes on a regular basis, and so we have to evaluate all those things. Some stuff we dismiss because we don't need to deal with it, and then there's things that we actually do need to implement and execute in a timely fashion. So, sorry, I've developed a little frog today. Go ahead next. This is the department summary. And so our ask this year is for 6 firefighters and 1 fire inspector and 1 behavioral health specialist. We'll get to another, on the next slide, we'll give you a little bit more detail of that. Basically, our budget with that at the top is a little over $12 million with that. And then we have a capital outlay. I think I've spoken with I know I'm speaking with everybody in terms of this is stuff that what you'll see is this is stuff that we would normally geo-bond, is basically where our capital outlay has historically come from. And that would be the total. So that's the total ask of a little over $15 million, but that includes nearly $3 million for capital outlay. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Oh, actually, go back. I'm sorry. The last piece I did want to really hit on is with regards to the SAFER grant. I know I've spoken with all of you with regards to that. So whatever you would, the SAFER grant currently, the plan for that, the federal government was supposed to start allocating those funds in May through September. They didn't start allocating until August, so now that 5-month window is going to translate from August to the end of the year. So we won't know. We have not received notification one way or the other yet, but we still now have until December to find that out. So whatever number, if you give us the 6 firefighters in this process, that would be deducted from those 33, and we would only fund 27. Okay, go to the next one. So that's what the hiring of 8 additional employees, that's the total figure that you have right there, a little over $900,000. And that is the whole thing, lock, stock, and barrel. That's salaries, equipment, turnouts, all the stuff that we have to do, background checks, all of that is all included in there. With regards to the 3 of those firefighters are going to staff our truck at 4. Which allows us to actually operate that vehicle to its maximum capacity. We currently only have 3 on it. And so in order to actually utilize that, both in terms of fireground operations, extrication, special urban search and rescue, all of those kinds of components, we really need 4 staff. We really need 4 on that piece of apparatus. The 3 additional people are, and we can talk a little bit more about that if you want, really has to do with giving us a little bit of what I call cushion in terms of we've got this year, there hasn't been a year that we haven't had multiple people off on what we call light duty. This year we've had, I have yet to have a year where we have not deployed someone overseas that we're responsible to cover that. And keep in mind, any kind of a vacancy we have means we're paying 2.5 times that position because it has to be filled with overtime. So, so that's why we're asking for 3 additional people, 1 on each shift, to help cover some of those costs. One other piece to just add to that is we've had a firefighter who's been off the entire year on light duty due to a vision issue. The fire inspector, that is an ask as well. And that really just has to do with the fact that we have one person in that office right now, the fire marshal. We've asked for an inspector because we actually, our light duty person that we've had on for this year has actually been able to go out and do inspections. And that has allowed us to get, this is the first time we've ever been really close to about 100% of all our commercial inspections. It also allows us the ability to schedule our inspections with our businesses. Currently, we also do company inspections, so our actual people on fire engines go out and do inspections as well. But the problem that we run into with that is they could start an inspection and then have to be called out on a call. And so, and they just kind of show up on the business's doorstep. This way, we're going to be able to schedule someone, be able to make that appointment, and be able to keep that appointment. So we think that that's a value added in terms of customer service to our commercial business owners. The behavioral health specialist will serve multiple functions, as I have there. One, it will support our community risk reduction program in the area of mental health. We currently try to staff that with our FRPs, our field resource paramedics, and we do that as a part of the whole well-being coalition component. But really what we're trying to do here is create the ability, because we have shift personnel, you can't really, when they make contact, so they're called out on a mental health call in someone's home or wherever it may be. Currently, we're in a position where we have to kind of hand that off to the next person who comes on shift. And so this provides us the ability to have, what I would just say from doorstep to the doctor's office service for these people as we run into these mental health kinds of situations. It also, the other hat that they're going to wear is within our own organization, we want to utilize these people for our own personnel as well as police and anybody else within the city. Just to give you a little backdrop on that, in 2014, we had a Westfield firefighter commit suicide, and in this last year, we have PTSD, 2 people out. Now, all of that seems like they kind of go away, but that's not really the case. It takes a while to create the documentation to be able for them to retire out through the PERF system. So, all those are again added costs that get back into the vacancy situation. And I just think the fact of the matter is that when you take a look at one employee here over a 20 to 25 year career, that equates to a little over $2 million per employee. So we think that this is a very good investment into those employees in terms of we take good care of them when they hurt themselves. The mental health component is the same thing. Next. So the materials and services component, the fire uniform, that's a PP increase of $78,000 this year. Most of that is going to be a one-time expense that you'll see reoccurring. Part of that is we are obligated to replace turnouts based on the warranty piece, so we have to replace those as they come due. And then the second part is body armor, where we live in that world now, and the body armor that we currently have also needs to be replaced, again, per warranty. Our travel and training increase, most of that is for our promotional process, which equates to a little over $20,000 this year. We are obligated by merit law to put on those promotional processes and have actual operating lists. And so that we use a third party to do that process for us. Part of the building maintenance increase, we are asking for 2 Plymouth events, vehicle exhaust systems for stations 82 and 83. This is a larger part of our cancer reduction program. And if you go out to 82s or 83s, you'll notice soot on the walls. Not a good thing. And so this is a system that basically, when they start the engine up, it takes that diesel exhaust and takes it out the building. So they aren't breathing this stuff when they're in the bay. The apron repair for Station 83, when engine 83 comes out, it comes down off the apron and goes onto Grassy Branch. There is, for lack of a better way to say it, it's like you kind of come into, it's like a V, and so when these are heavy vehicles, so when they turn, we end up breaking and popping springs at the tune of anywhere from $1,800 to $2,000 a whack. So this for us makes a lot of sense in terms of replacing that. The major piece of our capital outlays, our aerial apparatus. These are not cheap. And so the aerial apparatus is $1.37 million. That's to replace our current apparatus, our current aerial. To date, that piece of apparatus has been out of service over the last 3 years, about 160 days. That equates to roughly 6 months. I don't know how many of your cars have been in the shop over the last 3 years for 6 months, but that wouldn't be a good thing. But certainly with emergency apparatus, that's not a good thing. The other piece to this is that it was a prototype, so there's no other vehicle like it. And it's hard to find replacement parts, and it needs to be replaced. The fire equipment is really to equip that new apparatus. And the EMS equipment, we're asking $37,000 for a new monitor for an additional ALS engine. Next slide. This will be the last one, I think. We're also asking for purchase of transport of 1 ambulance at that cost, as well as an additional engine and some staff vehicles. Kind of walk through this for our ambulance that we need to. We are in a position where probably within the next year or two, we will probably put a 3rd ambulance in service. And so you have 3 ambulances in service, you're gonna need at least 2 reserve apparatus or reserve ambulances to do that. The purchase of 1 engine, walk through this. We currently have an engine that we purchased out of the last bond that will arrive in December. This will replace engine 382. The 2 frontline engines, or our 2 backup engines, excuse me, are our American LaFrance. That's a company that's been defunct for 2 years. So we really don't have reserve apparatus in a way that we should. So this will allow us to replace all of our frontline engines and begin to move some of our reserve engine 82 and 83 into reserve status. The staff vehicles, that's just 2 vehicles that replace on a rotating basis based on, generally it's about every 5 to 7 years is when we try to replace those. The fire and EMS equipment, same thing. Again, that is to includes cardiac monitors, stretcher and autoload system. Really what that is, our customers are getting heavier, and so we need the ability to load them in and out of the back of the ambulance safely for our people so we don't injure backs and all the rest of that stuff. And then again, new equipment for the engine, which includes hose, tools, and that kind of thing. Locution, that's our station alerting component. And so the county, through the LIT program, has, in fact, they're basically going to fund all of that all the way to the station. This is for inside the fire station for us to, it's the alerting system. The bells go off, the lights go on, that kind of thing. That's what the locution piece is, and the furniture is for the new fire station of 381. That's all I got. Certainly open it to questions. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, one thing I failed to mention, thanks, Todd. All of this stuff, the engine, if you bought the aerial apparatus, if you bought it today, it's 18 months to get here. Everybody understands it's a whole supply chain. Same thing with medic units are probably going to be closer to 18 months to 24 months. Staff vehicles, probably the same thing if they can't get a computer chip for the dang thing. You can go down the list of all of that. So I think those, those would be the highlights. So I'd certainly open it to any questions if you have any.
I just have just a couple comments, questions, just real quick here, because I know we got to get through everybody.
Sorry.
So, and no need to answer this tonight, but I think one thing, obviously, I mean, getting the updated slides on these would be helpful, because I think the ones we have are the old ones that don't have these same numbers in them. But in terms of, and I'll say this even for police too, police and fire, I mean, obviously, we appreciate what you do, and I mean, you know, there's no words that can explain people that, you know, it's probably a thankless job at times, I presume, until you actually help somebody, and then, you know, and then they appreciate it even more. So, you know, with a city like Westfield, this is one thing I would ask you to come back to us with, is, you know, we have a certain budget, and if what you know, where does Westfield fall in terms of other fire departments or police, and because I'd ask the same thing for police too. You know, this is our most important thing we have in the community. This important and public works. So, you know, where do we fall? I mean, are we in the first quartile? Are we in the second quartile? Third quartile? Are we in the high quartile? Where are we at in terms of spending compared to other cities? Because one of the things that's mentioned, and again, I'm not asking for really a response. You can come back with us to us all with this, but like the GO bond, the 2.9 million, that's something that, you know, we've said. I mean, we have to live by this, and this is kind of an overarching theme for Westfield. But you know, we see a population increase of 5.4%. Maybe our revenues go up 6%, but if our spending goes up by 12 to 15 or 20% every year, someday we're going to have to say, hey, wait a second, something's got to give. And I don't want it to be fire and police. Those are the first ones we don't want to give on. So I want to know where we stand in terms of fire and police, in terms of how are we situated compared to other cities of this size, growth, and revenue stream. So, and again, you don't have to answer me.
I'm not going to go in the revenue stream. The one thing I would note, this really accounts for 2 years worth of bonds. So that initial ask was stuff that we would have anticipated being in the 21, 22 bond. We spend proceeds the following year, so we would have expected that first slide that I had to include this year, and then then the rest of that would be for 22, 23 bond. So that's, you know, that's probably why the number looks as high as it does this one single year. That's why.
Okay.
We have not historically had to put that in our budget per se. That was a bond that was separate.
Todd, maybe you can get us some of those numbers or something, maybe.
But in terms of,
next couple
I would
weeks.
just say, in terms of that, I don't know what you're asking other than it's about how many people you have, it's about how many fire stations you have. That's really what drives anybody's budget. The highest cost is the personnel component. There's a capital component to it.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that, you know, a place like Carmel staffs everything at 4, you know, they got a much larger budget than ours.
Right.
So, I don't know what else to tell you there. Again, I can't speak to the revenue stream component, but what I can say is that we are not overstaffed, we are not over budgeted in any sense.
Right, yeah. I'm not insinuating that at all.
No,
I'm just
I know
actually
you
trying
weren't.
to-
I know you weren't.
Yeah.
Chief, my question for you
Sure.
was, when we had met, we talked about personnel and how we were actually spending quite a bit more because of overtime. So does your budget reflect a decrease in overtime if we grant the 6 firefighters?
Yeah, it would end up decreasing our overtime. That is correct.
Chief, real quick, how many firefighters do we have? What's the size?
66 on the line.
66 on the line. Okay. And you're asking for additional 8 at this point?
Actually, additional 6 firefighters and then a behavioral specialist and an inspector. So,
One last question is kind of, I noticed that you just ordered a new dishwasher, okay, and for $4,200. Is that something that you're gonna be able to take to the new building, or where's that located at?
I don't know what station it was, to be quite honest with you right now.
It's just use the station one, affirmative, yes, that can be repurposed to the new day.
Yes, that's correct.
Cool, thank you.
As can the plume events. Those also can be
I didn't, say that again, I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you just said.
Oh, the plume events, those are also things that we, if we were to move 82s or 83s or remodel them, any of that kind of stuff, that can also be
Perfect, thank you.
reutilized.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Things that don't stop in the fire department are not only the firefighters and paramedics, but are the appliances. So Chief Jordan's standing in for Chief Rush, and he can walk you through the police department submission.
Good evening. My name's Scott Jordan. I'm the Assistant Chief of Police here in Westfield. I'm going to give you a broad overview tonight. You have all the detailed figures. Chief Rush and I have met with several of you previous to this meeting. Just know as we go through this, if you have any additional questions for me or Chief Rush, you can always reach out to us, and we're happy to meet with you. Just a quick overview of our department. We have 71 current positions. 66 of those are sworn police officers. 5 are civilians. Of those 5 civilians, 3 are support personnel that deal with records and all of our reports and quality control. 2 of those civilians are criminalists. They oversee our property room and they go to our serious crimes and process those scenes. So I just wanted to share that with you. We have 4 main divisions. Our patrol division, which comprises most of our sworn staff, criminal investigation division, our support services, and special services. Our 2021 budget was right at $9 million, 8.965. 2022 is going to be right at $11 million. 671,980 are capital outlays that we've normally used the GEO bond to fund, and I'll get into that a little bit later. I'd also like to note that approximately 218,000 of that 11 million comes from existing non-reverting funds that deal with some of our reports, golf cart fees, and we also are the recipient of a K-9 trust that we receive every year. I want to give just an overview, though, of the highlights of our increases. Obviously, there are more than these, but these are the highlights. We programmed in a 4% salary increase, which is right at $203,000. We're proposing 3 additional police officers, which takes us to $177,513. Our state retirement plan has built-in increases of $66,226. That's just part of growth. We programmed in health and dental insurance at $161,751. Also, I wanted to note that in 2020 and 2021, we've promoted or appointed approximately 10 officers to either a supervisory role or investigations. Once we do that, their rate of pay goes up. So for subsequent budgets, we have to increase that amount as well. Additionally, over the past 18 months or so, we've hired about 15 police officers. The majority of those, I believe 12 of them, are lateral officers that we hired from other agencies. When they come in, they're also hired at a higher rate of pay than an officer with no experience. Our fuel increase, we're projecting at least $66,000 increase. That's based on the national trend. I'm sure you're aware of this, but we buy our fuel with the school corporation. We buy it by the tanker. Based on our tracking, we feel we need to increase that by at least $66,000. Also increasing our training line of $68,380. And really our only big ask for any projects for 2022 is the flock license plate camera system that we're asking for 15 cameras to be put throughout the city. All of our adjacent neighbors in this county have already deployed this system. IMPD uses this system, Zionsville, and the Indianapolis Airport. What's good about the system too is we'll be able to share all of the data with all of those customers. and that's $41,250. Finally, the capital outlays. It's basically a list of the vehicles, related equipment, installation services, which we've traditionally used the GEO bond to help pay for. These expenditures will allow the agency to sustain our existing vehicle replacement strategy. So we plan 4 to 5 years out every year on when vehicles will fall off, so we don't have to buy an excessive amount of vehicles in any one year. And for 2022, that's 13 police vehicles at $487,500, and the related installation and equipment is right at $184,480. That's my information for you tonight. Any questions at all?
I've got a quick question. What is the total number of vehicles that you have? Total number?
Total number right now, we have approximately 70. I can get a definitive number for you, but we always have pool cars in addition to the cars that are assigned to our officers. Our 2 criminalists also have assigned vehicles. They're subject to call-in as well.
Okay, thank you.
Counselors, any other questions? Chief? Chief, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next up is Mr. Lawler. As you can imagine, his system of budgeting is very complex. It has several different revenue streams. So,
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. I do believe I've had the opportunity to meet with all of you about the budget, but I'll try to go through quickly. For a little bit background, Public Works is currently 39 positions, comprises 4 to 5 departments: Street Department, Parks Department, the Engineering Department, excuse me, and the Stormwater Department. And then we also oversee the facilities of, so all the buildings that the city owns, police stations, fire stations, and et cetera. Our general fund increase this year, we were at $3.5 million last year. This year with the addition of Grand Junction Plaza, plus the GEO bond or the capital outlays, it'll be boosting our budget up to $8.96 million. So, 4.6 of that obviously is GEO bond related items, mostly construction activity. Additionally, I am asking for 3 full-time positions and then 4 seasonal folks. 2 of the full-timers are in the engineering department, and then a parks employee, which brings our total parks department up to 3, to really focus on Grand Junction Plaza, and it's the Grand Junction Plaza coordinator, so that person will spend the vast majority of their time there, but will also be available to assist in the other parks as well. Okay. Then I'll just kind of roll through my other budgets as well. So this is the capital outlays, how it's broken down. Much like the others, this is 2 years worth of what would be bond dollars. Unlike them, we spent our dollars in the year. So in 2021, we would be spending 2021 GEO bond dollars, and then at the end of the year, via reimbursement resolution, refund those dollars from the fund back to wherever the money came from. So in not doing one this year, it really makes for a double year in 2022, both from a vehicle obsolescence strategy as well as the capital road projects that were planned. Those are specifically for the 2021, 2 tandem axle dump trucks and 3 pickup trucks, and then 22 would be 8 pickup trucks. So we're looking at 11 trucks and 2 dump trucks. Much like the fire trucks, our large vehicles are 9 to 12 month lead time. So we will be wintering with trucks that are going to have a hard time making it through a heavy winter if we have one. And then the road dollars, projects that were funded via GEO bond for construction, 196th Street reconstruction, so that's from Grassy Branch East to East Street, 161st and Oak Roundabout, 151st and Town Roundabout, and 169th and Cary Roundabout. This is the MVH, or Motor Vehicle Highway Fund, 3.211 last year, and we're about 3.25, and that is attributable to the staff cost of living increases in the MVH budget. For those that don't know, our MVH is funded in two different mechanisms. One is a distribution from the state. It's a calculation based on gas tax and road miles and population and things like that. And then subsequently, many years ago, the city elected to add a couple cents to the property tax rate, which also comes directly into MVH. It is worth note that the state distribution, 50% of that is what they call restricted. It has to go to paving, reconstruction, and preservation of roads. So the other half we can utilize for staffing, so hiring people. There are 3 people, I think, that are paid out of MVH, and then also maintenance of vehicles, purchasing of vehicles, things like that. LRS, local roads and streets, also a state levied revenue. Last year's budget was 1.44. We are jumping up to 2.607. In the OpenGov site, you'll notice that our annual revenue for LRS is about $1 million. We've been fortunate to be able to reserve some of that cash over the last several years. We've got a healthy balance in there, and I will be utilizing that, the savings that we have for spend in 2022 also on capital road projects. LRS is 100% distributed by the state based on road mileage, and much like MVH, there are 2 different formulas. One thing that is note that you cannot hire people with LRS dollars. Stormwater fund. Stormwater is our utility. It is a rate-driven fund. Additionally, there are a fair amount of revenue dollars that come from developer fees, inspection costs, things like that. So as new development comes on, those inspections, they pay for our staff to be out there to ensure that the infrastructure is going in appropriately into our standards. So that money goes directly into the stormwater fund and subsequently pays those people there's roughly 10 people that are employed by the stormwater utility on my team. So small increase this year, 1.7 to 1.81. Revenues will exceed that, so we have largely a flat budget, but that change is associated with cost of living benefits and things of the staff members. Road impact fees, certainly our largest revenue. We're going from a budget of $4.5 million in 2021 to $5.8 million in 22. Revenues have outpaced even that number. We're going to exceed $6 million this year. As we've talked many times about the 32 project, we're reserving dollars over time to be able to pay cash for that out of impact fees. The increase here is largely to pay for the Jersey Street extension. So the new road from Union over to the East Street roundabout that'll be constructed with 32, and continuing costs, design costs, and other things for State Road 32 projects. So there are other projects funded out of there, but the heavy weight are those 2 projects for 2022. It is also worth note that we will be doing we are in the process of updating our road impact fee study. So you'll start seeing traffic counts and things like that happen. It'll obviously come to you all when we get a little further down. It goes through Plan Commission and then comes to you all for an ordinance revision toward the middle of next year. So it's a long process. We count traffic at every intersection, project for 20 years to know where we need to invest capital dollars, and that's what generates the rate. And park impact fees, very much like road impact fees, are paid at building permit time by only residential units, whether it be multifamily or single family residential. It will be coming due for a study as well. We actually had a decrease in the budget from 21 to 22. Primary focus in 22 is the design and phase 1 construction of the Simon Moon Park expansion, which I believe I've presented to you all as well. And I think that's it.
Can you go back to the LRS slide, local roads and streets, real quick? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. So, again, just for my, just tell me again, the 40% increase in this is due to what? I mean, overall.
Capital projects that we had planned on for a few years back, and we've been reserving cash.
Okay.
So we currently have roughly $2.3 million in cash in the LRS fund.
Okay.
And we'll continue to have revenues. We're spending some of that next year to keep the capital program moving.
I know stormwater is different, but is any of this have to do with any of the stormwater at all through what we're trying to do with this, like Centennial or anything like that?
LRS it does not. There are some LRS dollars that go to the resurfacing and Centennial and pavement maintenance, but the stormwater projects
Yeah, due to that, the stormwater issue, or the
stormwater rates pay for the stormwater repairs that are going
on the
Centennial.
streets?
Yes.
Okay.
And
sorry.
mostly it's an under drain situation, but we can't access it without having to replace some infrastructure.
If I understand enough about the ARPA dollars that can be used for stormwater mitigation,
Right.
if it touches a road project, there may be some
That's kind of
opportunity
that's
there
what I
that
was
we
kind of
probably need
going
to coordinate on that could mitigate this and put these monies somewhere else that
Right.
don't really have as much restriction as the ARPA dollars do.
Yeah, so that way we can keep our cash to do other things, right? Okay.
Yeah, and we're certainly open to working through those things. We've also got a couple grant applications out there specific to the federal aid dollars that are coming down separate from ARPA, SWIFT dollars in particular. So we'll see how those things shake out, and we can absolutely find some stormwater projects if we need to.
Jeremy, the very last slide you got off pretty quickly, you mentioned Simon Moon.
On this one here?
Yeah, was that the last one?
Yeah, the last one of mine, yeah. And I just kind of gave a little description of how funds, and hopefully you'll get these, most of that language has not changed since the last round, but how the dollars are collected, what the rules are associated with them, and how they can be spent, because each fund has got its own set of rules. So, any other questions for me at this point?
I have a question about the Grand Junction Plaza. How much is the actual operating budget for that?
From my perspective, there's other folks that have operational dollars in their budgets associated with Grand Junction as well, but we are roughly in the $600,000 range annually is what we're expecting. That is all the lawn care, maintenance, snow removal, staffing, trash collection, all that stuff is what we are.
But not programming?
No, programming would come out of Angie's budget. Or I'm sorry, Westfield Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy.
So now I think for the sake of time, and each director is here, I'll take the liberty to kind of touch on what they have submitted. Again, you will have this by as early as tomorrow, and we'll have it uploaded to the city's website as early as tomorrow. One thing on the capital outlays, I would draw your attention to that Excel spreadsheet that we provided last year on the 5-year lookout of capital purchases. So the capital outlays that you see in these numbers, these slides, tie back to that particular spreadsheet. So there should be very little, if any, deviation on that. So we can resubmit that to you if you don't have it at the ready. So community development is Mr. Todd here flanking me on my left. As you can imagine, there is significant growth. I know there's some questions with the council, raised at the Council of Finance, and I think Mr. Todd could speak to that better than what I can as far as the demands and pressure that's on his staff, and so therefore constituting not only an additional inspector, but some additional planners. When you see new hires listed, councilors, please bear in mind, that's an upfront number, but we will do our best. We typically and historically have laddered those out and spread those hirings out throughout the year for cash flow management purposes. So it's not like it's a tranche all up front. We may break it up, the first 6 months, last 6 months, and things of that nature. So with that, you'll see his revenues have increased substantially with the rate of our growth. And I think, I know Councilor Johns and I interacted via email. Our last certified special census was approximately 36,000 people. And the most recent decennial census is 46,000 people in a matter of about 5 years. So I think you can see in this operational demand a direct reflection of that. Kevin, is there anything else you'd like to add to?
No, that pretty well covers it. Really, the majority of the expense increase really is a direct relation to additional personnel requests, the additional inspector and the 4 additional planners. And as Todd mentioned, we would phase that in over the course of the year. We wouldn't add 5 people in January necessarily. That would, our plan is to phase that in over the first couple quarters. If needed, if the numbers, if we need to add 4, we'll work through that. But yeah, any other questions, I'm happy to answer if I can tonight, or at least come back with an answer in the future.
Okay. Guest services, Ms. Sparks is in the chamber tonight. What you see here, and I noted this during, I believe, the Council of Finance, we have tried and continue to centralize all the calls as a touch point into that particular team. They are the forward-facing guest services professionals that meet you. They take care of not only storm and trash billing, answer the calls, route the calls, help with administrative support of Kevin's team, and that of issuing invoices, collecting monies, being that forward-facing, if you will, customer service representative with the developer, with the customer, issuing those permits once they're paid, receiving monies in. The trash is exactly that. That is that contained fund, it's billed, it's taken in. Their actual operating is $465,503 for this coming year. And it's a team of 5 people. We are looking at those efficiencies to hold it at that, but in the event that it continues to add additional work volume, we request that the ability to hire 1 sometime in 2022. So the actual all in, as you see, it is 2.3, almost 2.4 on the trash and storm side, but for operating expenses, it is $465,503 to support those 5 individuals. Well, 5 plus 1 if approved. Any questions on guest services? Human resources, that's a team of 2 that support 220 people across this city, women and men that provide the services daily. They are an integral part of our team. They not only onboard, handle the common things associated with HR, recruit, EAP, health, the health plan, the health center, all those things. They are that touch point for not only our workforce of people, but their families as well. As you can imagine, some of our employees don't manage their affairs directly. They leave it to their spouses or their significant others. And Kimberly and Brady are those 2 individuals who just returned from SHRM. It's a national conference, and their support for their operation is what you see on the screen of $237,000, inclusive of not only their training, their expenses, and their salaries and total comp. Any questions about HR?
I just got one question, Todd.
Yes, sir.
Disability, say from the fire department or the police department, is that handled by HR or is that handled within the respective departments?
They work together as a team. So if it's a disability claim related to the pension fund, that's through the local pension board, through the state pension office. That's managed not only with the state pension doctor, Dr. I believe still Moffitt, if I'm correct, but anything outside of that, any other claims would be a team effort with HR and in that particular department.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Work comp, you name it. Informatics, it's Mr. Larson. Everything that we do is somehow intersected in the informatics department. His team support all technology needs across the entire city, inclusive of public safety, computers, now in working with the county, now that they manage most of those assets. But any and all devices, print management, cell phones, computers, mobile or laptop, or mobile or desktop, his team, the entire technology platform that's on the city, managing and interfacing with our web hosts, vendors, you name it, it all intersects here. His department is a central cost center for cell phones and print services. So we've tried to consolidate and create scale so it's not across 11 different departments, it's managed in one. That is all undertaken within the informatics department. Any questions about that?
How many employees are in the informatics?
Yeah, 6 total, including Mr. Larson. Comparatively, I think that's less than most of our counterparts.
Okay. Were we looking at adding one this year?
Affirmative.
Okay.
Other questions related to informatics?
In the consulting, who is it that we pay?
Consulting informatics? Yeah, the vendors in your consulting line.
For what service?
I don't know, I mean, it's just lumped in terms of consulting. Right now, we have about $187,000 for next year.
Yeah, we do a lot of consulting for a number of different products that we have because we are not experts in them. So for CRM, we have a third party that we can go to. SharePoint, our firewalls are the 3 big ones that we do with that. And then same with the website, consulting is in for that as well. So, but the big one is mainly CRM and our managed partner who watches our firewall because it's our #1 protection. So.
Are those subscriptions or actual consulting fees?
The CRM is mainly consulting. It is based on the projects we're doing. So.
Okay.
And if you like some examples, we're working on making a calendar for the Hamilton County Training Facility so we can make it more accessible to other departments outside of Hamilton County or other groups that want to do safety training and hopefully make it a little bit more revenue out of that asset that the city manage rent for the county. So
To build on the customer relations management platform, it was kind of an out-of-the-box product, probably what, 4 or 3 years ago? 4 or 3 years ago, lost track of time. So all of our workflow management is through that. I can, for the sake of time, I won't tonight, but light that up to show you from a workforce tracking, it's assigned a work order and it's tracked with that supervisor. How long does it stay in the queue based on priority? So it's been a scaled system. Anybody that's taking a phone call from a citizen or anybody can input a work order. You can do it from your phone. It's just a portal. It's on our website. And that's how we track those things. Self-scheduling on building inspections for Kevin's team has alleviated the need for a secondary or third administrative assistant. We're trying to push all that traffic into self-managed in the field, gets sent automatically to an inspector once it's self-scheduled. So that's a lot of that background work with the CRM platform. And happy to showcase that for you at a future time. Public Affairs, this is Ms. Duncan. So you can see the various things that's undertaken in there. As a matter of fact, this presentation is a product of her team, 3 individuals, trying to manage all the social media channels, which is where most people want to go to for their information. Road closures, things of that nature. So 409 to 503 proposed for the 2022 budget. Administration is kind of a collection of not only the city council budget, Board of Works, that's the 3 members there. Economic development, you interact with Mr. Chuck on a regular basis, and admin overall, 2.5. There are, as noted earlier, legal, consulting, all those things that come in, they're not spread across the various departments. If there's a legal need or within police, that comes out of admin, et cetera, et cetera. And you see that exploded view within OpenGov.
I have a comment on admin more than anything. The people that are sitting here today who are Westfield residents, I hope we all appreciate the fact that legal bills of $1 million benefit nobody. Nobody wins. I don't care who wins or who loses in the court of law. Nobody wins. That money's gone. All it is so somebody else can pat somebody else on the back and say, hey, good job, you were right, you were wrong. But if we overspend by $1 million, that $1 million is money that doesn't go to Public Works. That's money that doesn't go to the fire and safety. That's money that doesn't get attributed back to the people in the city of Westfield. So I hope we take a more discerning look at some of our budget numbers and we possibly or remotely stay on budget with our numbers for next year.
Todd, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
City Council, 32.81%. What is that?
That's largely constituted of the cabin project, as I understand it. It's in your
Okay.
exploded view, but that's my understanding.
Very good, thank you.
Percentages don't always tell the stories, it's just part of it. And mayor is allocated to a separate budget as well. And you have that exploded view. There's dues, membership, of certain things that go in there, CERTA, things that are transportation related would come out of there. Again, that's an exploded view that you have. I think because of the other questions related to Grand Junction, I'm going to have Ms. Frazier take the dais and walk you through what she's envisioned on her budget as well.
Hello, good evening. So as Todd mentioned, we're going to talk about the events, the huge jump here, which most of you I've met with, I think, except for one. We are hoping to host new marquee events in the event space in Grand Junction Plaza that's similar to Westfield Rocks the Fourth. I think most of you are out there at Westfield Rocks the Fourth, so you know the scale that event is on. That's what we hope for downtown, so that's why we have the increase. In the past, we have only used general fund dollars for that one event. The rest of the events that we host in the community, we go out and find through sponsorships, vendor fees, things like that. So our hope is to have something similar to Rocks the Fourth for the community, to get more people downtown, not just locally, not just for residents, but regionally as well. So we can get them downtown, hang out, spend more time here, spend money here. And so those events will be Grand Junction Winter Function, Lantern Days. We'll put Cuisine Connect Culture into that space. We'll have a fall festival and a Halloween parade, and then we'll move Westfield and Lights into that space. If you have any questions about those events specifically, or if you want to talk about how that breaks down, let me know. Any questions on those? Nope. So outside of that, that is the biggest portion of the increase that we have. It's for those new events that we want to put into that space. We also have an equipment line. I know that Cindy had some questions. We will manage the programming and those events in that space, but obviously we will be in partnership with Jeremy and his team all of the time, them dealing with the infrastructure and supporting us in our needs, but we'll manage the programming along with Chris McConnell. Some of the equipment that we have in our budgets for crowd fencing, propane heaters, theater system, and the tents that we will have. And some of those are just one-time purchases that should last up to 5 years. So a lot of the things that we're asking for this year, we should not need for another 5 years. You have any questions on those?
You're not asking for any additional people?
No. Nope. We will have 4 full-time staff. We have 2 event coordinators. One will be, which is Kelly Welsh. She will be managing all the events within the plaza. We have a part-time staff who will manage the programming schedule. Our other events coordinator will manage the community events outside of the plaza. And then obviously we'll have the director. And then we'll have a summer intern as needed to help Bailey while she's out at Colts Camp during the summer and to assist her Bailey is our hospitality coordinator, so she'll keep the new resident program, all the hospitality and tourism efforts going, and all the volunteer needs for the community. So no extra staff.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Angie did a phenomenal job with the 4th of July.
Thank you.
I guarantee everybody thinks so. I mean, it was fantastic.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Awesome music this year,
Yeah.
really good.
Thank
right?
you.
So if you had another staff, I mean, you're communicating with the public on an ongoing basis, and if you had another staff, I mean, what does that look like?
And then if we added an additional staff member?
Yeah.
We would probably go ahead and offer extra community events outside of that, but instead of hiring someone else, we're trying to work with a lot of community partners. So obviously Westfield Chamber, Downtown Westfield Association, there are a lot of partners that we have within the community who want to put events into that space, so it's not just the city hosting every single thing and not using all of our resources for everything. So we're trying to work with a lot of people to put things in there. Could be yoga on Wednesday mornings that's hosted by, one of the gym owners locally, or, a movie night on a Wednesday night that's hosted by someone else. A lot of the groups that Jake is involved in, Westfield, the coalition, the Wellbeing Coalition, and when we have Westfield Forward, there are just a lot of others who would do that. If we had additional staff, we would just up our game and work harder at bringing in more money through sponsorships and add additional events.
You'd have the opportunity to communicate more with the Westfield citizens and that sort of thing.
With what we do specifically,
right.
just for hospitality and the community events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Not the important stuff, the public affairs does.
Okay.
We had one more slide for mine. That's just our non-reverting account. This is just money we bring in through sponsorship, vendor fees, ticketing fees, registration fees for our running races, things like that. It's not a huge jump, even though we are saying that we're gonna add in extra events. You don't really know until you know. So first-time events are kind of iffy, so I don't wanna overpromise and underdeliver. But if some of you were at the event on Saturday, I really think that event is going to kick off big time next year. We had some volunteers clicking at our multicultural event, and I think we had around 3,000. That's pretty big for a first-time event, so we can only imagine that's gonna be great. Yep,
I was gonna save this to the end, but since you brought it up, that was an outstanding event.
thank you, thank you. They worked really hard on
I
it.
think that one's probably here to stay. That
Yeah.
was really
Kelly
good.
Wells gets all the credit for that. She did a great
Yes.
job.
Thank you to Kelly.
Any other questions? Thank you.
So, back to the capital outlay summary, just because it is spread across the various departments. These numbers are reflective of what you've already heard. I don't know if there's more to say or any questions you might have related to this, but this is the proposal.
What was it on the initial capital outlay? What was our GO bond last year?
5, we've been doing 5.
5 million?
Yeah, so as noted earlier, we've not done any movement on that in 2021, so this is an 18-month lookout.
So Todd, do you expect, what about next year and the following years? What do you expect in terms of capital overlay that we're gonna have to budget for?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I think we've got to have more of a focused conversation because this is a recommended cash spend that you have, I think on the 25th, you got a budget overview from Mr. Garitas, who is sitting behind me, recommending on what to do with the cash and to meet these needs. I think we're relieving the pressure off CCD, so that can be a funding source as well, the human cap development. You'll be asked, I don't know if we've already done that, reestablish that at the 5 cents. That's an annual exercise. So that's a really good question. We feel like we've had a decent strategy, but at this point, knowing that there's not, we do have an increase in our AV, knowing that there wasn't much support for a GO bond, this is our ask leading into next year, which will, again, kind of be an arrear spend for things that ordinarily would have been purchased already by now.
So my concern is how long can we sustain that before we drain all of our cash reserves? Have we done any analysis on that?
Yeah,
at
so
all?
let me get through these and I'll yield to Mr. Garitas. There's the overall from general fund. Keep in mind there's several funds. Fire has its own fund. So general is the fund by which nearly all the other departments live out of, everything from administration to police to public works that are not the MVH or LRS. So you have that as a roll-up on both of those. Again, that is net of any of the capital outlay. And here is, for sake of consistency, Mr. Knox is in the room. He has presented this to the Redevelopment Commission. We just bring it and include it in the overall budget package. Nothing that you will be asked to do relative to this, but it is part of the Redevelopment Commission's overview. And if you have questions related to that, I think many of you spent time with Mr. Knox. He can field your questions this evening if you have them. Associated with that is the food and beverage. We've discussed that in the past. The revenue is projected at $1.3 million this year. A good chunk of that does go to flow to Grant Park in support of largely the Colts camp. And that's it. So with that, I'll yield just real quickly. I know we're closing in on the 9 o'clock hour. I'll turn it over to Mr. Garatas to kind of just sum up the strategies of debt management and cash spend.
Thank you, Todd. And just to make sure that everybody knows, my name is Greg Garatas. I'm president of Financial Solutions Group. I've got this July 30th memo that we put together, and the $8 million is a higher number than I used originally in July 30th, but we're working on updating the sustainability. We believe, really to answer your question directly, we're really going to kind of look at this as this year's strategy, and then we may be back for the GO next year. It all depends on several things. First of all, how your income taxes, your second biggest source of revenue, which you know as a county as a whole went down 3.8%, how that reacts to what I'm going to call COVID-2. And also the property tax growth quotient. If you recall, probably time flies when you're having fun, but 10 years ago when I installed that special legislation for Westfield, it's been tweaked each and every year. It got tweaked again, where your population had to grow at least 50%. Otherwise, we wouldn't have qualified for it. And up until maybe a couple weeks ago, we didn't even think we would qualify. We do qualify. So that'll be good news again as we move forward. If that gets tweaked again in some other way, then I can't guarantee that we would be able to match. Remember, the special growth quotient is allowing us from day one to match the revenues and the expenses and the growth that's being incurred, trying to match those up and keep a levelized tax rate. So we put these notes together here. What we're trying to do is also then, like we said last year, pay off that turf lease coming later this year. We want to get it paid off so that we can use that CCD fund for pay-as-you-go vehicle leases or vehicles. And so that's a strategy we were putting together last year, and we said we wanted to do, and we now have the payoff of $1.234 million. So we also knew that the fire station bond was coming, so that is one that will actually not impact the tax rate next year in 2022 because you capitalize the interest when you have a building corporation during the point of construction. Once you're in the building, then it will be put in to the debt service rate, and you saw all those numbers in the support for the petition and all that. And Cindy's been really good to work with. We've built that hypothetical amortization schedule in there. If we lower it with ARP money, we could do that. I'm looking at doing that for some jails and things like that. That would only lower that debt service, and then we would change that. We wouldn't have a hypothetical debt service schedule. We wouldn't issue the bonds until all those things are done. So, and we know that amount exactly. So I think to answer the question, we do have to take it 1 year at a time because there's so many events occurring. But we also feel that with the updated sustainability, we'll be able to kind of project, as you know, we go out 5 years in that document. And so we're updating it now. The good news is general fund is a balanced budget, and we are going to then fund as many capital improvements as we can, and hopefully all of them. So it's kind of a summary. Todd, anything that you think I may have missed? Okay. Any
Can I ask you a question? That's
yes,
me,
Cindy.
sorry.
Sorry, it comes from the ceiling.
It's been a lot of years that I have been usually going over the sustainability analysis that you would work on with our staff. And on your summary page at the beginning, one of the first things it always said is you would not recommend additional hires. I mean, there was language to that effect most of the time. Now, I have not tallied up, and I don't want this to sound bad. It's just I'm trying to figure out the increase in employees, and is that sustainable for us?
Yeah, and Cindy, what I'm running into right now, the two biggest questions across the state of Indiana is, number one, keeping up with the salary. The amount of wage pressures that are going on right now are enormous. Second thing is, in a community like this, growing the staff, we've got to, we've been working real well with both the police and the fire, your two major sources, or the two major entities. And we've been saying if we can phase them in, that's best and that's sustainable. Okay? Now, if we bled down all the cash for capital improvements, then it wouldn't be sustainable. So remember, I tried to say we got to have a little equalization here. That's why we're trying to put on staff gradually, trying to increase and keep the services. And all the department heads, I mean, we probably met 3 or 4 times this year. Everybody's put a tremendous amount of effort, and I think we've got a good product, but things can change. They change each and every year.
Okay, and I don't know that any of us have seen a recent sustainability analysis.
We've had 1 or 2 versions, and that was in preparation for this budget. Matter of fact, the version I looked at today had us over probably $5 million over what the asks were. So we pared that down to more closer to revenue, and so we'll have a new one probably within the next week or so.
Yeah, I would like for us all to receive that, please.
Yeah, we use that very heavily for the revenues, and we again worked with the clerk treasurer's office. The goal is to get the revenues into Gateway, which we did, and then also get them into your financial system going forward for 2022. So we can not only see when your appropriations go negative, but maybe when revenue is insufficient or over budget. And that's a real goal for what I'm trying to challenge or accomplish for 2022.
Also, before I forget, is Jeremy still here? Yeah, Jeremy, can you get us copies of the capital improvement plan as well? Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Gertrude, I just agree with Cindy. If you can get us that sustainability study, maybe within a week. I mean, if it's 2 weeks, then we're at our next meeting. That doesn't really give us any time.
Well, I know staff was working on it hard today because we finalized the numbers. Now we have to work with Cindy's staff again tomorrow or the next day and make sure Gateway's correct. And because that's the thing that we have to re-push the button on. And so, because staff has changed some things and we want to get the most updated, but we'll get that then into the sustainability. But I know staff was working on it today.
Thank you.
Sure.
Greg, on sustainability, how do you factor in, like 2 big things that we just don't know? One is the SAFER grant, and one is what ARPA funding potentially could be used for. I mean, those are huge building blocks that we don't really know yet.
Well, I've got a good idea because I've been reading the statute time and time again. I've been consulting with counties, cities, towns, you name it. And so you're right. The final rules are not out by Treasury, and they're expected probably within the next, hopefully 30 to 60 days. But most people are reserving their ARPA dollars and not trying to spend them day one, year one. Okay, they're trying to strategically spend them on capital items, number one. And they aren't real big on operating unless you're creating a type of mental health type thing or something like that. And then the plan is you have to have the off-ramp. The off-ramp, which is after 2024, when the funds are no longer available. So we're not really recommending those be used even at a county level for ongoing operating expenses. And so that covers ARPA. Then for the other, your first one was, pardon me? Yeah, the SAFER's been a snowball where with the fire department, we kind of did one with SAFER, one without SAFER. 33 new employees, minus 6 maybe, is a lot, and that will be funded for a while, but then there's an off-ramp. And that off-ramp will have to prepare years, each and every year. That was part of the reason why we were building up cash and why I still believe the GO is a very valuable asset for us as we unlock that growth that we cannot unlock from the tax levy. And so that's where I was saying, stay tuned. I think it's a year-by-year analysis. Okay? Sure. Well, we've looked at that.
Hey, Greg, just a high-level question. In 2020, we ran, and this is according to OpenGov, we ran about a $13 million deficit. And in 2021, it's expected to be about $9 million, correct? This is just according to OpenGov. So
I don't know those numbers, and Cindy, pardon me? Yeah, okay, but this is another hypothetical at this point.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And you're really good
I love
at those.
hypothetical questions.
Okay.
How long can we sustain spending more than we bring in? I mean, how much are we paying down in debt? Let me ask you that first. Each year.
Pardon me?
How much are we paying down in debt each year?
Our debt's really rolling off, and that analysis, Troy, is in the analysis for the building corp.
Yeah.
And as you can see, I believe, I've got it right here behind me, but I think we were at 10 cents out of our total tax rate, and we're going down to 6 here real quick, maybe bump up to 8.
Yeah.
But so we're really managing our debt very, very well.
Yeah.
Now the fire building will come on, but it's, I think, 2.7 cents. So our debt component of the total tax rate's actually decreasing, and actually is very, very good and very, very manageable. The 9 and the 10, I don't see that in the general fund. The sustainability shows the general fund balance over the last, I think we've got almost 6-7 years in there from Cindy's books and records, actuals.
Yeah. So, and if you don't know, it's okay. I mean, I'm just asking for a hard dollar number. How much have we spent? How much have we paid down in debt?
Yeah, I would ask,
Last
on your
year.
deficit number, what report in OpenGov?
I'm just on the overview.
Yeah, there's so much in there that I think you would really have to analyze that.
Well, I know, that's why I'm just asking how much of it is debt? I mean.
Well, the debt's been paid down as we pay it off.
Yeah.
Okay, except for the turf lease. So the debt that's been paid down, the annual debt service, is in that document that is attached to the building corp.
Okay.
Document.
I was just saying overall for the last couple of years. It's okay. I mean, maybe we just get it to us later. I'd like to know that number, what that number is each year.
Yeah, so high level or overall debt portfolio all in is approximately, I think, $111 million.
Yeah.
Citywide, all debt instruments.
Yeah.
And so obviously there's been enough revenue, be it TIF, be it property tax, whatever it is, to pay those on time and on schedule.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that, actually.
Okay.
I'm literally curious as to what the debt payments have been each year.
And those are in the sustainability in the back part. We have the entire debt and the cost of equity or cost.
I think it would be more accurate to get the historical view out of NAV, out of the system of record.
Okay.
So out of $111 million total, all those debt payments have been made.
Sure.
They're in there. Yep.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Other questions? And remember, the TIF, just for everybody's education, the TIF is a revenue-supported debt, where TIF is paying most of that. And I'm not the consultant on the TIF. You have another consultant on that. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Again, I'll revisit the timeline for everybody's memory, and we, again, will have this not only into your access and possession, but also on the city's website. We are here. I would ask that additional questions or discussions with us before the public hearing, if you have those, or when you have those, please reach to us by the 23rd. We've got a list of documents that we'll push out to you as well. At your next regular scheduled meeting, the 27th is the public hearing, and then the 11th is adoption consideration, and then it has to be in by this date here, November 1st, for the state. So with that, I know we've really consumed a lot of time here on this important endeavor. Any final parting questions before we can move on with the rest of your meeting?
Todd, one last question for me. I was just wondering, what percentage salary increase do we use, and do we use the same across the board?
We plugged in a 4% overall.
4%?
Yes, sir. We validated that not only with the Archer folks, the folks that comprise the salary study, but also Mr. Garretaz as well.
Thank you. Any other questions, Captain?
This is kind of related, but when we do the salary ordinance and stuff, and you mentioned the Archer study, I know for several years, we've kind of talked about looking at the entire package that we're getting our employees, and we have not had that assessment, but it was supposed to be done. So if we could get information on that, it'd be very helpful.
Total comp includes all the ancillary benefits, health insurance, access to employee health. I will say one of the, outside of the salary component, the biggest chunk of expense is that of health insurance. It's at $3.6 million. Bear in mind, we've transitioned last year in 2020 to self-funded. We finished the year roughly with $400,000 in the black, carry that over. The strategy there is to continually encourage very thoughtful utilization of the plan. Also going to the Employee Health Center, it's a much lower price point of expense. Even the visits patient to practitioner is 20 minutes on average versus the 7 in a conventional network. And a whole host of things I won't beleaguer tonight, but we're trying to build, if you will, a health insurance rainy day fund. So build on that $400,000 again and again and again to mitigate any catastrophic losses. We're constantly looking at ways to drive down the overall cost of that, passing any increases on to our workforce as we incur those, but that's a large chunk, and we'll get that to you. Pension, we have a money purchase plan that is for non-public safety that I don't know.
You just mentioned you were going to go through and with every individual do an assessment.
So we do each year issue a total comp profile that's mailed to their homes. Mm-hmm. We do deliver that to their individual possession.
Okay.
Is that what you're referring to?
Well, I just know you mentioned you were going to do this and hadn't done it yet. And so I don't know if we're discussing the same thing, but it was more of an assessment of how our benefits and what we offer compares, because that was the whole thing with the Archer study. It was kind of doing
the salary is very key in that. What we also partner with First Person Advisors, which is our health insurance agent, assimilating all that information as an individual, reporting from the directors back to the member of the team, any training dollars that were invested in them, that's all put on a one-sheeter mailed to their home.
Okay.
Maybe
this is more about looking at and seeing how competitive we are, or, you know, where we're over, where we're
Sure.
under,
Oh, yeah.
and knowing how we then compete so we can get our talent and keep our talent.
Understood.
here.
Yep. Other questions?
Okay. Moving back to our agenda, next item is Resolution 21-129, declaration of the official intent to reimburse expenditures for the fire station and headquarters. This is up for adoption consideration tonight, and this is really a follow-up to Resolution 21-128, which we approved earlier this evening. So, Todd, did you want to address this?
I don't know if Mr. Crawford, bond counsel for this project, is still on the call. We may have outlasted him. This is an instrument as part of the financing cadence that we asked that the council undertake. It is for the 13.8. Yeah.
So we do this in every project, so if there's like engineering fees or architect fees that are incurred now, it's done with every school project or any type of municipal building. If there's expenses incurred now and we want to reimburse from the bond issue, before the bond issue, if those expenses incurred, we accumulate those at the clerk's office and then they're reimbursed at the time that the bond is issued. We always go back to the client and say, if you don't want to reimburse them and you just want to not have them reimbursed, then the bond issue is lowered. Normal course of action is to have that. This I'm not the attorney, I'm the CPA, but by federal law and the MA, by federal law, you need to have this because this is an intent to reimburse. It's not an obligation, it's an intent. That's it. Soft cost and those type of things. Or maybe a dishwasher.
Councilors, questions? Comments? Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-29?
So moved. I'll second that.
Okay, the motion made by Scott.
I don't know, it was double whammy. Yes, I did make that motion.
Okay, who seconded it?
I'll second it.
And Joe seconded it, okay. I'm confused, okay. Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Okay. Moving on, ordinance 21-40, establishing the ARP Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, supporting the city of Westfield's recovery from COVID-19 pandemic. It's up for council introduction this evening and adoption consideration this evening. And I think Cindy's going to address this. Okay.
This is pretty much a housekeeping item, excuse me, housekeeping item so we can handle the money that we actually already received from the U.S. Treasury from the American Rescue Plan Act. Cindy Gossard has now received the money on behalf of the city, and so a fund needed to be created, and that's by way of Cindy's office, and it's with guidance from the State Board of Accounts. So she has done that, and I believe it's Fund 176? Yes. Right. So this is basically just formalizing that fund. And I will say in this ordinance online, the actual dollar amount was not included on there that we have received. And that is $4,927,372.71. So I would like that added to ordinance 2140. That's about it, unless there's any questions.
Okay, any questions? Can I have a motion to approve ordinance 21-40?
So moved.
Councilman John, sorry, if you want to approve it tonight, you have to suspend the rules first.
Okay.
And then move to approve it.
Okay, okay.
Sure.
All right. let's move to suspend the rules.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules to vote on resolution 21 dash, ordinance 21-40, sorry.
Second.
The motion made to suspend the rules, made by Scott Wills, seconded by Joe Edwards. Cindy, call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Okay. Now can I have a motion to approve ordinance 21-40?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Scott Fry, seconded by Jake Gilbert. Cindy?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is Resolution 21-130, council to engage a separate ARPA council. Adoption consideration this evening. Annie, do we have to suspend the rules on this one also?
That's a resolution.
No, sir, because it's a resolution. Yep, you're all set.
Okay, thank you. All right. Cindy, Spolger, comments?
Yeah, I'll do this one too. So with these ARPA funds that we are receiving, the use of them is actually quite complicated. It's not just the U.S. Treasury giving us a lot of money and letting us spend it how we'd like to. And so there's a very complicated, as we talked about before, interim final guidance, which is kind of a misnomer there, and basically a whole lot of rules. And so in order to make sure that we don't get some kind of clawback, close to $10 million down the road, the goal was to engage legal counsel who has expertise exactly in this area with Barnes and Thornburg. So we discussed this at our last meeting. This specific one is for 3 months, and October, November, December, $3,000 a month, total of $9,000, and that is reimbursed by the ARPA fund, which is allowed per the rules.
And if I might add, whenever you're dealing with federal grants, guaranteed you're going to get audited. So it's really important we do this right. We dot every I, cross every T to keep the city from any kind of, as Cindy mentioned, clawback at a later date. So.
Any other questions, comments?
Cindy, are we engaging a firm or
Yes, it is Barnes and Thornburg,
Okay.
and it is Jake German, and also Mr. Meeks has been helping us too there, so it's kind of a twofer.
Do I have a motion? to
so
approve?
moved?
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion made by Joe Edwards, seconded by Scott Fry. Cindy, would you please call the roll?
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Cindy Spalcheric,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Joe Edwards.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Moving on to ordinance 21-38, Hiddle at 31 PUD Amendment 1. It's up for a council introduction tonight. There'll be an APC public hearing on October 4th, back to the APC on November 3rd, and hopefully back here for adoption consideration on November 9th. Do I have a presenter? John?
Kevin told me I have 15 minutes to present, so I'll keep it no more than 15. Good evening. For the record, John Dabashewitz with Nelson and Frankenberger. We represent the petitioner. Present tonight on behalf of the petitioner is Sunny Patel virtually, and Jim Schinner returning with our office. As noted, the matter before you this evening is the introduction of an amendment to the Hiddle at 31 PUD. Specifically, the amendment pertains to prevented building materials as they apply to one of the proposed hotel buildings, the subject building within Area 2 of the PUD. The subject real estate is outlined here. Subject parcel is approximately 5.5 acres and generally located at the southwest corner of US 31 and 191st Street. The real estate's identified as Lot 1 in the Hiddle at 31 subdivision and is zoned pursuant to the Hiddle at 31 PUD, which was approved by the council in January of 2018. So the applicant proposes to construct a new Holiday Inn Express and Suites on the real estate as one of 2 future hotels that were originally planned. While a hotel is a permitted use on the real estate, the applicant has filed the request which seeks to change the building design included in this illustration as a Holiday Inn Express and Suites, which is on display. Previously, the building design which was included in the original ordinance was for a La Quinta Hotel, which is no longer proposed. The addition of Drive-It custom brick as a permitted exterior material on the building, in addition to architectural insulated panels and/or ceramic panels as permitted today, is also requested. In conclusion, we reviewed the request with staff, and staff are supportive of the request, but were unable to approve the proposed building material administratively. Therefore, we're before you this evening with the requested amendment. We believe that the proposed material is compatible in appearance and quality with the current permitted materials and therefore appropriate for alternative consideration. The matter is scheduled, as indicated, for a public hearing in front of the Planning Commission on October 4th, after which we'll be back to you with a recommendation. I have a sample of the building material product, but I understand we'll probably review that in greater detail at the Planning Commission. With that, we would ask that the council forward the matter to the Planning Commission for consideration on October 4th.
Thank you, John. Councilors, questions? I guess we look forward to seeing you back here.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next ordinance, 21-39, Midland South PUD amendment. For council introduction this evening, APC hearing October 4th, APC recommendation on October 18th, and adoption consideration with the council on October 25th.
Good evening, Justin Moffett with Old Town. Here to just address a text error. The drawings are exactly what were presented for the townhomes at Midland South. We will share those back with the APC on a consent agenda, but turns out that the PUD document didn't jive with the elevations on height, so nothing's changed the project, but amending the overall building height to match the actual drawings that were shared with the APC.
Thanks, Justin. Any comments, councilors? We'll see you back soon.
Thank you for your service tonight.
All right. The next item on the agenda is two food truck requests. The first being Portillo's for September 21st through the 24th, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the site location. Someone going to, Kevin?
Yeah, I'll just address this one real quickly. This is a one-time kind of a media event or a promotional event for them, really in line with their construction and future opening. They wanted to get some media presence out there, have a food truck, have open to the public, and have a few days of celebration of opening. So I think it's in advance of their actual open date, but it aligns pretty closely. So.
Do you know, you're not sure when the opening date's going to be yet?
I don't know. We can find out, but I don't know their exact date.
Because my wife.
I know that's a common one.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Scott Willis, seconded by Jake Gilbert. Cindy Gosser, would you call the roll, please?
Was this just for Portillo?
Just for Portillo's.
Okay.
We'll do each one separately.
Okay. Mike Johns?
Yes.
Scott Fry?
Yes.
Troy Patton?
Yes.
Joe Edwards?
Yes.
Scott Willis?
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric? Yes. Jake Gilbert?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Good. The next item is food truck request for St. Maria Goretti, October 15th from 4:30 to 9 p.m. Kevin, can you?
Yeah, again, I don't have a map for this one, but again, very similar. It's just a one-time event. They're asking for food trucks. Currently, our ordinance doesn't allow it without council approval. So.
Okay, all right. Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Scott Fry, seconded by Joe Edwards. Cindy, would you please call the roll.
Okay, Troy Patton.
Yes.
Scott Fry.
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Joe Edwards.
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Cindy Spalcheri.
Yes.
Jake Gilbert.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
At this time, I'd like to welcome any residents who would like to address the council.
Good evening. I wasn't sure that I would make it, but we've heard a lot tonight. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Judy Stanley Shuck, 209 West Main Street, Westfield, Indiana. Okay, I just want to give a little tidbit. I've listened to about the fire department a lot tonight and so forth, and got me thinking, back. And of course, I like to share lots of history with everybody. But I want to thank you, of course, first and foremost, for your service. And unfortunately, we did have to use you this summer one time. And, but I just, like to say, boy, have we come a long way from where it was when I was growing up in a small town, and we had a volunteer fire department. I remember when my father was fire chief and incorporated the township and the town fire department to make it together so they could benefit from tax dollars. But mostly I remember that when there would be a fire, the operator would put the switchboard in to all the volunteer firemen that, of course, had phones then, and most of them were all crank phones, and so the operator knew exactly who to call. Well, then when we got dial phones, that fire call came into our home. Everybody that was a volunteer fireman, the phone rang, a long ring, to tell you that there was a fire. Well, so everybody had to go down to the station and turn, or somebody did, to turn the whistle on. They didn't always do that, so one time, because being close to the fire station, one time I ran down and turned the whistle on for everybody to come get the truck and go to the fire. Well, there was even a story one time that our wonderful volunteers, they all got the call, they all went to the fire, but they looked at each other and looked around because they forgot the truck. Okay, so they're all human, but good guys. And I want to, this weekend we had lots of stories we heard about the bravery of men and the firemen going into the buildings. But one time, those big tanks out at Jolietteville, those big gas tanks, caught on fire, and the volunteers had to go out and take care of it. They did have the truck that night. But 2 firemen were going up the ladder, and the one said, "Red, we may not make it down." But thank God they did. And we have lots of stories to tell and cherish the volunteer firemen that serve this community and what we have now, all the firemen that we do. And so I just thank them. I'm privileged to have been able to live in this community a long time and serve our family, serve this community too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin, do we have any other cards?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, next item is clerk treasurer's comments.
Yes, I have some. As the council is aware, my office has been looking into the use of remote access software on the computers in my office that we discovered earlier this year. At our previous council meeting, I had committed to providing the council with updates regarding our efforts. At this time, I can advise that our forensic IT expert, Veracity, has completed enough work to issue a preliminary report based on its findings to date. And I have provided each of you with a copy for your review of their report. The preliminary report speaks for itself and provides detail of Veracity's initial findings. However, I believe that the preliminary report makes it clear that there's been frequent and extensive use of the Beyond Trust software to gain access into my computers in my office, particularly during the period of December 2020 through April 2021. And that's all I have right now. If you have any questions, you're welcome to call my attorneys.
Thank you, Cindy. City council comments.
I would like to thank all the city staff and the people who participated in our event that we had this past Saturday, and Scott Willis did a lovely tribute for 9/11, and what a fantastic time. So next year when we get to hold that event at the plaza, it's going to be even better, and we're all excited about that.
Any other comments? Okay, I've got just a couple. First
Oh,
of
wait,
all.
Mike, I'm sorry, did you want me to do the APC updates too?
Would you please?
I
Would you
will,
please?
okay.
I'm sorry.
I didn't know if you wanted that too.
I do.
We had a consent agenda with 4 detailed development plans, and that included Sonic, Ortho Indy, Star Bank, and the historic Barker Cabin that will be located right next door. We approved the Bonterra overall development plan and primary plat. We issued the recommendation for the PUD we approved tonight with Springville Trails. We held the public hearing for Osborne Trails Phase 2, overall development plan and primary plat. And also, if I could just add, and this is not for APC, but this is just to let you know that our ARPA committee did meet, and so that would be a different committee report if I had a full report. It was our get to know each other meeting and get everyone on the same page of what this program actually is. But just so I can let the community know, our next meetings will be here, and so they will be recorded, but they're not going to be just generally open to the public. We have our committee and we need to do our work. So, but you can come and watch, and it will be available online. So those meeting dates are September 24th, October 8th, and October 22nd, just in case anyone's interested.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Any report from the finance committee? Nope. Okay. I do have just one couple quick comments to make. First of all, obviously, I voiced my frustration earlier tonight about the fact that we have over budgeted or under budgeted certain items, and I just want to let the mayor know if John, if you can reach out to the mayor and let him know that I am available to meet with him if he would like to talk about those, so that hopefully we can have those resolved. If we're going to ask for an appropriation, I'd like to do it as soon as possible and hopefully get it before the next council meeting. So I'm available to do that. The second item is just to kind of to share with you some of, not even the thoughts, but maybe some of the emotions I went through over the last 2 days with the 9/11 20th anniversary. And again, it's a time to reflect back upon the United States as a country, how we react when the things get tough. And sometimes we have a long meeting like we have tonight, and we think about how many extra minutes we've put into it. But we need to reflect back upon the sacrifices that are made and have been made by some of our great Americans in the times of crisis. So I just encourage you all to think about and reflect back upon 20 years ago, what we went through then, the sense of unity that we had then, And hopefully, at least here in Westfield, we can recapture some of that unity moving forward. So that's my comments for tonight. And any other comments, councilors? That said, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.